Good morning and welcome to the Orlando Real Estate Buzz. I'm Brendan Rendo of the Homes in Orlando team at Next Home Neighborhood Realty and joined by Joseph Dion of Appley Home Loans. And for the summertime, we got hit with a ton of news this week.
I like news.
Yeah, it was fun. It's actually kind of trying to follow everything's been kind of nuts. But of course, we got Powell coming out yesterday, holding rates. You got the GDP coming out. You've got pending home sales came out. You've got consumer confidence coming out as well. And then jobless claims today. So we have got a ton to talk about. So let's get started. So first and foremost, I think we got to start with our buddy, Jerome, and, coming out and really capped it all off in about the first minute and a half.
Good afternoon. My colleagues and I remain squarely focused on achieving our dual mandate goals of maximum employment and stable prices for the benefit of the American people. Despite elevated uncertainty, the economy is in a solid position.
Okay.
The unemployment rate remains low, and the labor market is at or near maximum employment.
All sounds
Inflation
good.
has been running somewhat above our 2% longer run objective. In support of our goals, today the Federal Open Market Committee decided to leave our policy interest rate unchanged.
We knew that.
I believe that the current stance of monetary policy leaves us well positioned to respond in a timely way to potential economic developments.
So that sums it up in a nutshell.
It was a lot of nothing, right? Like we all kind of knew he wasn't going to change rates. We were going to see rates change. One thing that was interested is there were two Fed members that did vote to lower rates this time, which now we don't have a uniform approach here. We're starting to see a little mixed bag. But I was a little shocked. Like I kind of thought with everything going on with, Powell and Trump and all the news, I kind of expected Powell to come out a little bit more dovish. And I felt like his presser was very hawkish.
Yeah, he's uncertainty. He used that word in there right off the bat. Elevated uncertainty.
Yep.
When there's elevated uncertainty, what are they going to do? Nothing. They're going to sit and hold. But then at the end, he leaves us in a position to timely react. What's Trump's complaint been about Powell? Too late, Powell.
Too late
to react. So it's kind of like I covered my ass. I have covered my ass both ways because, again, if you watch, I think he was 46 minutes, something like that. Mm-hmm. He talked about the tariffs again, still not sure about where the tariffs are going to go. Talked a little bit about GDP and how the tariffs affected the GDP of this quarter. Again, talking about the unemployment. When we look at the unemployment numbers here shortly, we're going to see that it's all kind of stabilized. So I really feel, I was looking at this and I really feel it's like we really are kind of in a neutral rate environment where if you got a 3% GDP, that's a pretty good GDP,
I think there's a little bit of mixed bag with that GDP though.
Yeah, there is. I mean, when we look at it, here's the GDP for the past several quarters. Yeah. Last quarter we actually were negative, and that was really kind of due to the front loading of the tariffs. Yeah. Because if you're importing, it brings down GDP. If you're exporting, GDP number goes up. That's really kind of how that affects that number.
Which then that Q1 being being where it was, then made Q2 because this is quarter over quarter, right? Mm-hmm. So it makes that 3% growth for Q2 look much stronger than it probably was if you were to extrapolate over a longer period.
Exactly. So because now you had all these people load up on their inventory. Well, the inventory's starting to deplete. So what do they got to do? They got to manufacture. They got to build stuff. So what does it do? Get a little extra boost.
Some of those tariff deals have come in place, reduced, we've seen that rates drop. So we've seen a little bit more opening in that, bringing in some goods and services. And I would say, I think when I was looking at the numbers, we really, if you average Q1 and Q2, we're probably closer to a 1% or 1.5.
Yeah. And that's what he brought up is he brought up, yes, this quarter was good, but last quarter was crappy, and you average them out, we're only at, like you said, the 1.5, and at the 1.5, that's not great growth. That's not, real strong growth. So
that's almost, that's very, I know it sounds silly, like it's growing, but it's very, anything under 2 is kind of almost like a stagnant growth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The one thing I did like seeing in the numbers was government spending actually has held pretty steady, very little growth in the government for both quarters. So, they're still overspending, but they're not continuing the growth that we saw during the Biden administration, where they just blew out. They were averaging like almost 2% growth in government spending during that time.
Which, if I think about this, and I'm just, and I might be on a, if government spending, because government spending isn't good, right? Like if the government was a household, they would be in a shit ton of trouble. But if you're spending this much more, like, and as long as it's at a lower percentage than our GDP growth, it actually over time actually is good. It's not great because we're still spending more than we have, but it's not. My big concern that I look at all of this is, I just don't want the government spending at a higher rate than our GDP.
Yeah. Yeah. And I watched an interview with Secretary Bissett, and their whole goal is to outgrow the debt. Is they want to see, get us to like a 5% growth rate so that it actually makes the debt look smaller as a smaller percentage of overall GDP, because I believe the target's like 3%. Somewhere in that ballpark. But here's kind of, the problem that we're seeing. I'm a geek. I get the Treasury announcements on a daily basis. Okay. I'm on their mailing list. But here's the thing that they announced, just on the 28th, is that they're going to be borrowing from July to September, the final quarter of the government year, $1 trillion. So we're going to add another $1 trillion the deficit. And then from October to December, they're expecting to borrow another almost $600 billion. They only upped the debt ceiling by $5 trillion. And they've just taken out, 30% of it right away?
Yeah, like I said, we're not running as a great household. Right, but I kind of feel like we've been borrowing at such a large rate for so long. But I kind of want to, like, you mentioned the 5% growth rate. Like, that's really ambitious. I know we had it, in like 2021, like, we averaged over a 5% GDP growth rate. Like, but historically outside of that, there's only been a couple other times that we've done that. What was it? We did it during Reagan's term in the 80s. In the 60s, we did it with Kennedy and Johnson. And then, because want to spur an economy, have a war, World War II, I think we saw like the biggest annualized GDP growth rate, which was 10%. And I think, so you're going back all the way, in the existence of the year, our GDP growth rate year over year has only been over 4 times. Mm-hmm. And one of those was kind of because of COVID, right? Like massive drop.
Yeah, if you go like this, right? to grow, it's a heck of a lot easier.
So, I don't know. Like, I think 5% is very, very ambitious, and it's very, I guess the way you do that is you keep pumping you keep pumping that 401k money into the stock, into the S&P 500 and so forth.
Yeah, that's really it. I like the trade deals that he's negotiating. I like those. I like seeing us pulling in revenue from other countries, but I'm still, it's like, okay, 5% of, we're doing 5% of $30 trillion. That's our GDP right now, 30 trillion. So, what is that? We got to grow 6% or $6 trillion in a year? Is that about right?
Yeah. No, that would be 20%, right? GDP growth. Yeah. So 5% would be 31.5 trillion over and above what we're already doing.
Yeah.
And you just said that we're just going to borrow. We're borrowing 1.6 trillion over the next 6 months. So that's not even going to beat if we do 5%, then we're not even beating the new debt we're issuing.
Yeah.
So we need to be at 6-7%.
But here's the other problem: is what's that debt average going to be? It's going to be like 4.25%, somewhere in that ballpark.
Yeah.
That's adding a lot of debt, a lot of payment onto the current debt. So I don't see how you outrun the increases in the interest payments. And that's why Trump's raising the stink. It's not to, totally unleash the economy. It's crap. Yeah. This blows my whole budget out of whack because, instead of getting that introductory rate on your credit card of, 1.99% on everything you transferred, you're 19%. You're 21%. So it's just not in the ballpark of what we need,
Yeah. And I'm thinking, as you think a lot about, I know Trump, as a business person and so forth, he's utilized the bankruptcy courts as a great opportunity to restructure, he's done it, he's known for it. A lot of people say, oh, he's not a successful business person. Look, he's filed for bankruptcy with blah, blah, blah. Well, he's using bankruptcy law to restructure debt, restructure this and that. He's not exactly doing that right now, but he's kind of using the tariff structure, the restructure. He's sitting there and going, what mechanisms do I have to control, that we can control, that we can potentially improve our situation? And and I wouldn't be shocked if this is phase one and there's, we get the tariffs all kind of wrapped up and then we see something else. And he goes, okay, phase two, what's the next piece that we're going to do?
Yep. Because there's got to be something, especially with all this debt that we have coming due by the end of the year. I mean, you got another $9 trillion that's got to be refinanced, and it's gonna affect the overall budget because again, we're probably going to add 100 billion, 150 billion in interest payment that we're going to have to put out on a yearly basis. So I understand what he's trying to do. I don't know if he can do it. I just don't know.
I'm going to have faith.
Yeah, I hope so. I really like the Treasury Secretary. He explains it well, and you can see the wheels turning in his head. You know what I mean? Yeah. He's a very smart man. Very smart man. So, oops. And then, so what else did we get today? We got jobless claims, which pretty much stayed steady, 218 versus 217. No real movement there. The long term basically stayed about the same. Actually did. 1.9 million people, so no big difference in the long-term unemployment. This was not something I really wanted to see, but pending home sales came out, and pending home sales dropped again, dropped almost a full percent, 0.8, and the revised numbers right now is actually that we're going to have under 4 million homes sold this year. It had been about 4.2, but Zillow, Realtor, Redfin, and NAR have all dropped their projection for home sales. And actually the June was the largest number of cancellations in history, contract-wise. So I don't know if it's just a lot of uncertainty or if people are looking and saying, wow, I can get if I walk away from here, I might be able to get a better deal over here. I mean, one of the things I showed last week are all the price cuts that the builders are having. And for the first time this past week, we got some from Toll Brothers. Yeah. And they had one that was a $925,000 home dropped to $785,000.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I've been thinking about this as you talk, we talk about price cuts, this and that, but with these buyers, let's say you're a buyer, you're under contract, new build in a community, and you're building and you're under contract for 9-10 months. And then you see that they price cut $75,000 on a quick move in type home in the same community. You have no leverage, right?
You have no recourse.
You're just stuck. No recourse. You're under contract, and if you're wait a minute, in value, what's interesting is appraisal is still coming in probably.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is here's the difference. You're independent, Joe. You're independent. You're gonna use an independent appraiser.
Yeah.
You get the benefit of all the discounts if you use the builder's lender.
Yep.
Who happens to probably use the same appraiser.
Yes and no, probably, right? They have to use an AMC. They can't control, but to be they're going to probably have their own AMC, appraisal management company, where they're going to have their own group of appraisers, and those appraisers know that.
I don't know. Because I'm wondering, how do you skip it? I mean, I understand you can't use it until it's actually sold.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if I'm that buyer and I'm just, because everybody does it, you go under contract, and I see it with my clients. They're still on my webpage looking at stuff, looking at other houses, it's just fun. They like to do it. But if I'm looking through and I'm buying a house from Taylor Morrison in this community, and I just went under contract for $750,000, and I see a quick move in, not same model, knocked down to $650,000, I'm asking questions.
Yeah.
I'm making phone calls. I'm saying, ho, wait a minute. Why am I paying $100,000 more than what you're doing over here? Hey, I'll switch houses. I don't care about the lot. Save myself $100,000. Let me switch. And the builder's going, no, you're tied into this lot. This is your contract. And you ever try to read a builder's contract front to back? Holy cow.
I can tell you this, there's not one grain of protection for the buyer.
Nope. It is the most one-sided contracts you are ever going to see. You feel some days like even an act of God, they're not going to let you out. So that's the big question I have, and that's been my concern over the past year is all these communities that are being built up, people who bought 2 years ago having to sell, and this is where I was on a networking Zoom call, and a number of agents brought up the fact that they're seeing short sales, and all the short sales are people who purchased their homes 2, 3, 4 years ago. Those are the ones, everything's going short sale. One, because the appreciation's gone to nothing. And two, because inside the communities, builders have had to cut prices. So that's the difficulty that we're seeing, So we've got that. And then, consumer confidence is inching up a little bit. Do you feel it? I don't.
Maybe just because things are stable, like in the sense of like we're not seeing massive swings in rates and stuff. Maybe I've seen it inch a little bit, but maybe, I don't know.
This was one of the numbers I wanted to go through back to the home buyers.
Yeah.
Is the number of people looking. The Realtor Confidence Index shows a 4 to 6% year-over-year increase in home buyer and seller traffic. That kind of blew me away, because what it means is there's actually more people out looking. They're looking, but they're not pulling the trigger.
Yeah.
I read that and I'm like, really? I haven't seen. I haven't really seen an increase in traffic. I monitor my website, on a regular basis to look at traffic. July has been down, quite honestly, about 20% from June. And I don't feel that the traffic is up a whole lot, but I can understand people are looking, but they don't want to pull that trigger.
Yep.
Not at the current rates that we're sitting at. And that's just been kind of one that really kind of took me by surprise overall.
Yeah, I can see that. I think a lot of people held up, right? And it's like, all right, 2020, 2021, 2022 rates are going up. People pause. So now we're at a point where they're like, okay, rates never really went back down. Do I consider this is where the market's at? And then you kind of go, oh shit, can I afford that payment?
Yeah.
Language, right? I think that's what you're kind of getting. Am I better off if I sell? Am I better off if I just stay? I think most people moving right now, you have people doing the move up, or people that bought in a higher rate environment so that they don't care, right? But I think a lot of movements are necessity moves.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I've actually I've got a couple rental listings, and I'd say probably 7 out of the 10 people who call are people transferring into Orlando, which really surprised me. Had North Carolina, California, New York, Pennsylvania. There were, several of them who were like, hey, we're going to be in town for 2 days and we'd love to see the house. And you're like, oh, okay, yeah, we'll get it scheduled. We'll get it scheduled with you. The one I just leased, and it surprised me because, you're looking at a rental price of nearly $3,000. And none of them, and they're all like, no, I'm not ready to buy. No, not ready to buy. And you hear the hesitancy in their voice that they're just not comfortable with the market yet. Yeah, I understand moving to a new place, maybe spend a year, learn where you like, what you don't like. But still, there's just no desire that, hey, if I felt the right house popped up, I would buy. It's no, I just want to look at rentals. Like, oh, okay.
Interesting.
Okay. So we get all that, and that really just kind of brings us into where our numbers are with Orlando, which, again, is just flatline. If we were in a hospital, like say we're dead, here we are, 405 sales for the week. Actually a little less than the week before. Inventory has totally flattened out. We're not seeing a big increase at all. It's really kind of leveled out completely. Same thing with the condo market. Then we look here, we actually jumped up a little bit. Months of inventory. We were just over 5 last week. Now we're jumped to about 5.39 months. And you see the over $1 million, they've jumped to 8, almost 9 months, 8.85 months of inventory.
Wow.
And this, I believe, I've got a couple spec builders at that price range, and he's getting nothing on 2 of his houses. One's at 1.2 and one's at like 1.6. And getting no traffic. And boy, am I glad I don't have the carrying costs on those. That is just something I would not want to do. But then I talked to another spec builder who I've got to do an inspection for him this week. He just finished up a couple duplexes, but he's going into College Park and he's building one that's going to be $1.3 million. Yeah. And I'm just like, why do you keep building these? They're just, the numbers just don't line up to jump on these. I understand you got, probably a 6-month, 9-month build with a house size that they're building, but I'm looking at these numbers going, no, thank you.
I mean, they must, there's got to be some profitability, right? Like,
yeah. I don't know if it's just people moving in, selling their houses. I'm trying to figure out where those buyers coming from.
Yeah.
Because it's most of them are all move up. They're all move up. They've got one house and they're moving up to a bigger house. I'm just trying to figure out where exactly what market are they coming from. Then again, you see it, weekly sales really kind of flatlines.
Yep.
Same thing with our inventory. We're still up nearly 29% for the year, but really haven't seen a whole lot of new inventory hitting the market, And then same thing with the condos. Condos sitting at roughly 9 months worth of inventory. And your original to list, you're 93%. So there's plenty of room to negotiate in the condos. So the market in Orlando, just steady as can be, really no ups, no downs, just nice and steady, which is nice, but I'd like to see those numbers jump, maybe 100, 150 homes per week. I just think that would really make it. And I'm curious because I know we've been waiting for it, how Hometown Heroes might affect that coming up, because they did tighten again the employment requirements. We're back to strictly the firefighters, the nurses, public service. So, and I think it's going to tighten it, but I've got a couple of people who quite honestly are sitting and waiting for that to finally get. We've been sitting since we're supposed to be out July 1st, and just kind of check.
There's a lot of lenders and realtors that have been selling Hometown Heroes since like February. Like,
I remember you gave the warning, and I had a lady call me last week, and she was supposed to close on her house the first week in August, and both the realtor and the lender had promised her the Hometown Heroes program. She's calling, is there anything I can do? Is there anything I can do after I close? And I'm like, no, there's not. The only thing I could suggest is trying to get an extension for at least 30 days. Try and get to mid-September, work out something with the seller, because I can't tell you. Nobody can tell you when those funds are gonna come available. And then once they do, you still got to go back through the entire underwriting process. Yeah. So I felt so bad for her. And the other thing I tell her is see if your lender can do the county program. Maybe they can at least get you $10,000. Yeah. So, but that was not a nice, fun conversation to have. Yeah. I felt very bad for her. She had put down a $6,000 deposit on the home, and was very afraid of losing it. And I said, well, unfortunately, there's a good chance you might. Yeah. Depends what you can work out. So, well, that's our market for the day. And again, as always, if you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, others, please like and subscribe. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you again here next Thursday on the Orlando Real Estate Buzz. Take care. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.